Hey, this is Alex with the Unbiased Trailblazer podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Unbiased Blazers. There's a link in our bio for our Discord server where you can join in on the discussions, give us your takes, give us comments, or just join in on a podcast. Now, let's get to the show. Rip City, baby.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Lift off and the clock has started.
What is up, Rip City? Welcome to episode 20 of the Unbiased Trailblazer podcast. I'm chilling here with my boy Fawad. Mike is once again not feeling good. He's still fighting a little throat. He said he has some kind of throat issue that he can't really talk, so he won't be the best candidate for a podcast right now. Fawad, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I've just had a long, exhausting day. Happy to talk about some Blazers.
Yeah, it's unfortunately for us, it's been a pretty good week for Blazer basketball, so we actually get to have a mostly positive podcast. So I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about some good Blazer basketball. First off, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. Where were you when you heard about Neil Olshey's issues, which we're going to get into later, but I'm just kind of curious, like what you were thinking when it happened, because it pretty much happened right after the game. So I was just curious what you were doing when you saw that.
I was I was just on Twitter, like scrolling through Blazers Twitter, listening to what people were saying about the game, and out of nowhere, I saw the news, and I was like, "Holy, what just happened?" I was more shocked than anything. I didn't have any thoughts on it immediately because the initial tweet didn't have a lot of information to begin with, so I was just like more shocked than positive or negative.
Yeah, I went on to just see like what people were commenting about on the game, and that was the first thing that popped up, and I was like, what the hell's going on? What did I miss? So it was kind of just blindsided, I think, everybody pretty much. So we're going to hop into the podcast. We're going to kind of do a quick little game recap of the 3 games that happened over the week, which I believe, do you recall, first off, how we did on our predictions?
Yeah, I think we both had the Lakers winning.
Yes.
And we both had us going 2-1, but I think I had us losing to the Cavs and beating the Pacers, and you had us the other way around.
Great, so I suck still. Glad to know.
Sure.
Glad to know.
If I remember correctly, I think I went 3-0.
Oh, you did go 3-0, so now you're up. We got to keep track of score better. We're going to have to figure that out, and then we'll keep track better.
Then we tied the first week, so whatever the difference is, it's whatever happened this week.
Yeah, we'll get an official score out here in a second. So with that being said, like you said, we lost to the Cavaliers. That was our first game of the week after our Monday podcast. Let me pull up the score real quick. I have it right here.
And that was, I think, our 4th loss in a row or something. That was a kind of a low point.
Was it our 4th loss? It was our 3rd
Maybe
loss.
A third.
Third loss.
It might have been a 3rd. Okay.
So we ended up losing 104 to 107. It actually came down to the wire, and Dame missed a 3 to tie the game. But I know you said you didn't really get to catch much of that game, so I'll just kind of talk a little bit about it. We kind of want to make this fast. So Lillard struggled from shooting again. At this point, he was still struggling. He went 10 of 27. He had 26 points. My biggest issue with this game is kind of like what we talked about on the last podcast was Lillard I felt like he was shooting too much in that second half, like we talked about. If it's not going, he needs to try to get the players that are going in more involved. Simons had a great game. Powell was doing pretty well. He was shooting 50% the whole game. So it just would have been nice. I don't mind him taking the last shot no matter what. Like, to me, he's the most clutch player in the NBA. Maybe tied with Curry. I don't know. We can talk about that later. But as far as the whole game is considered, he shot 27 times. I mean, and he only made 10 of them. So those shots should have probably went to some other players, and it probably would have hopefully not even relied on him trying to make a last-second shot to win the game. But our defense was a little iffy. Jarrett Allen kind of exposed Nurk and just kind of made Nurk look like He wasn't even out there playing. It was kind of embarrassing. And Sexton was blowing by CJ almost every play. But all that being said, Lillard's shooting terrible and our defense not really playing that well. We were still in it at the end of the game, and that's kind of how all these games have been, except for the Clippers game. We've pretty much all been close in reaching distance at one point or the other. So that's promising. I don't know if you have anything you want to add on the game or not, but it was kind
I
of it was our last loss. So
I didn't get to catch the game. I was busy most of the week. But just looking at the box score, Simmons got 24 minutes and 11 shots, and he shot well. But Dame had 39 minutes and didn't shoot well. So everyone has been saying it the entire season. Simons has been playing so well. He needs more shots and more minutes. So I would have liked to see Simon. I want Simons to get 24, 25 minutes if he's playing bad, and if he's playing well, I want to bump him up to 28 or so. And Dame doesn't need to be playing 39 minutes in the regular season, like regardless of game. If he's playing poorly, then definitely not give some of those
yeah,
minutes to Simons.
especially if
And
he's playing poorly.
yeah, and one more thing that I want to say, Cavs are historically not great, but as of today, they're 7-4, and they've had a lot of close games with a lot of good teams. So it's not a terrible thing that we lost to them. I think at the time they had around the same record as us, so it looked a little bit worse. But they have seemed like Evan Mobley has taken them to another level. Sexton and Garland have gotten better. But Allen has been great for them, so I don't think they're a bad team at all. They might even make the playoffs if things go right, or at least the play-in.
Yeah, probably. At least the play-in.
Yeah, so it's not like we lost to, like, a bottom feeder.
Yeah. Uh, let's move on to the next game. The Pacers and the Blazers played in Portland. This was our first home game back from that road trip, and we ended up. It was a very intense game. It was an exciting game. It came down to the wire. Once again, we ended up winning 110 to 106. And I don't know how many times we're gonna say this in our lifetimes as Blazers fans. It was all thanks to Robert Covington's clutch 3-point shooting. Um, that fourth quarter, he hit big shot after big shot. He went 5 of 10 from 3. He had 19 points. He hit shots when he needed to, and that was that's all you can ask is when you're left open, just make the shots when you're open. And I feel like that's what Robert Covington did. This game was probably one of the worst games Lillard had. He shot 2 of 13. He only had 4 points. I don't know. I think that tied his career low for points. So, I mean, he wasn't looking to score. I actually kind of like that he only shot 13 times when it wasn't going for him. He had 11 assists. So CJ had actually a pretty good game, and Norman Powell had a really good game too. And of course, once again, Simons only played 21 minutes, but he had a great game. And I agree with you, Fawad. I think we need to get him in there. We need to get him in there more, and Lillard a little bit less. And that's only going to help Lillard as time goes on through the season to play less minutes. It's going to save his legs and give him a little bit more energy. But it was a great game. It was fun to watch. We came out with a win, and it was a close win, and so it was good to see. Do you have anything you want to add on the Pacers game?
Yeah, so I missed a small chunk of this game as well, but from what I saw, it was definitely one of the better games Covington has had as a Blazer. And Norm Powell was excellent again, 8 for 14, 25 points. And then again, Simon's only 21 minutes. If he's playing well, he had 16 points in 21 minutes. He should be getting more touches than that. Um, he's shown that he's earned it, and not just as a scorer, but even as a playmaker, he's improved in that regard as well. He's making good decisions. He only had one assist, but I see him making the right pass like almost every time he has the ball. Um, and this was one of CJ's better games too. He After the hot start at the start of the season, I feel like he kind of cooled down. So this was kind of like a return to form. for him.
Yeah, it was good to see him kind of get back into the groove of things because he shot good. He was 11 for 19 with 27, so can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, and to keep myself from getting too high off a win, Pacers aren't a good team, so the fact that I went down to the wire with them, I wasn't too happy about that. But then on the flip side, any game you win where Dame scores 4 points, it's a
Exactly.
good win. So I'm happy we won. I'm not taking it as something like it wasn't the turning point of the season by any means, but it's a good win.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the last game. It was the Lakers and the Blazers, and just to start off, I in our last podcast I proclaimed that Lillard would drop a 50 piece on Westbrook and the Lakers, and had the game not been a blowout, I'll be honest with you, I think he might have. This was one of the better games Lillard had. Right off the start, jump ball, we get the tip, Lillard hits a three, and uh, he finished with 25 points. He didn't have to shoot very much because pretty much the game was out of reach from the get go. For me, I think the biggest point in this game was Nurkic actually played pretty good and it was against Dwight Howard. I know Anthony Davis was playing for a little bit, but he ended up sitting out because I think mostly because the game was out of reach. And
Um,
he
but I had my headphones in. I was like, oh, I can't hear anything. I was confused for a minute.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I'm just talking about the Lakers game. Nurkic played well. He had 17 rebounds. He had 15 points, 3 steals. So defense-wise, he played really good. He made some pretty good plays on offense. Simons, out of all the games this week, this was probably his worst game. He was 4 of 14. But what I'd noticed that he was doing was instead of having an off night because he wasn't scoring, he was making plays for others. He had 4 assists and he had 5 rebounds, so that was really good to see. But let me just say this. Anytime we get Greg Brown in the game, I'm happy. I love watching him play. I love watching him jump. We tried to do an alley-oop play I remember for him, and I'm really excited for Greg Brown. I think he's such an underrated second round pick that I don't think people realize what we have. I mean, maybe most of the Blazer fans do, but I don't think a lot of other NBA fans. Greg Brown is special, and I think he could be. He's going to help us eventually down the road. It might not be this year, but I really do like what I see from him, and I think he's got some good potential. For what I know, this game you kind of got a little bit. You caught a little bit more of the game. So how did you feel this game went?
Anytime you see Greg Brown, it's exciting basketball to watch. He's basically must watch at this point. But unfortunately, we didn't get any huge highlights this time. That lob was great, but he didn't finish, so I wanted that really bad. But anyways, the game overall, I think that was one of Nurk's better games of the season, and um, he's been slowly getting more and more consistent and a good effort like all around. So I'm really happy with what I'm seeing from him, especially on the defensive end. But I think his offense is coming around now too. So yeah, happy with him. Happy with seeing Greg Brown. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything. And yeah, one of Simon's weaker games, but again, I thought he made good decisions. He took good shots. He just didn't fall.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Okay, and then one more thing. I don't want to sound too much like a downer. It was the Lakers without LeBron and without AD for all but 7 minutes. So I don't
Yeah.
want to. There's not much I can take from that game. Like our defense was probably better, but it's also because their offense isn't good to begin with. So, um, a blowout when you can't like not like that. But I also can't take too much away from it because we were playing, and the Lakers even when healthy they haven't been that good. But when they're down their 2 best players, there's not a lot. Um, there's not a lot of significance that you can put into it.
Well, anytime we can smack Westbrook, I like it.
Okay, yeah,
So I'm
and the
good with
Lakers
that.
in general.
Yeah, and throw Lakers on top of that. It's a double win for us. We're gonna move on to some questions we got asked from our boy Lucas. So he's got a couple for us. The very first one, obviously, is we talked about Greg Brown just now. So his first question was, "It's only been a few games, but are we happy that we drafted Greg Brown?" And for me, easy answer, yes. Second round pick. I think it's a great pick. He's got a bright future. I feel like he's so athletic. He can jump. He can do everything. He's long. I look forward to seeing him as time goes on.
100%. I can't even add anything more. Like you covered it perfectly. Very happy with the pick.
Yeah. He had another question. He said, "Do we consider Simons more of a point guard now?" And I'll be honest with you. Last year, even when people were saying he's not a point guard, he's so small. I never saw him as a shooting guard. Yeah, he's a good shooter and he can make plays for himself. I've always viewed him as a point guard. So to me, he looks more like a point guard now than anything. But I've always thought he was a point guard.
I was in that boat last year where I felt like he wasn't really a point guard and we were forcing him into that role. But I definitely see it now, and I think he can definitely be a backup point guard and even maybe when he gets a little bit better, starting point guard somewhere in the league. Um, but he's not really so word like a pure point guard, but there's also not many in the league.
Yeah.
Even Dame is kind of like a combo guard, so I think Simons is in that same category, whereas someone like Dennis Smith Jr. I view as like a pure point, but there's not many of those in the league to begin with.
Well, just a couple more tattoos, and then we can consider him a pure point. He also had another question he asked a while ago, and we never got to it, so we're going to get to it right now. And I kind of like this idea. So he said, "What's more likely, or what's it seems impossible?" So what I want to do is I'm going to ask you a question. I just kind of want you to give me 1 out of 10 how likely you think it's going to happen, and then at the end we'll pick which one we think is the most likely to happen. So for you, Dame getting MVP, what are the odds? Like 1 through 10, what do you think? 10 being he's gonna get it guaranteed, and 1 no way.
The start of the season, I probably would have said like an 8, but right now I'm down to like a 6. He hasn't had the start he needs to win MVP, but the start of the season usually gets forgotten anyways. It'll be more about the record with anything over anything with him though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually totally agree. I would have said the exact same thing, 8, and then because of his history, it's keeping him up. Because I think a lot of players, if they play like this, we wouldn't even say 6, but because we know how good he
Yeah.
can be, 6 is a good spot. And like you said, the beginning of the season tends to usually get forgotten about, and it's more about the record at the end of the year and how they've played. Next question, Nasir Little, most improved player. Also, let's add in Simons too, because he added Simons too, so we're gonna do Nasir Little and Simons. What do you think the 1 out of 10 for those?
I like how much Nasir has improved, but I feel like historically the award goes to um people who like were already in a bench role and then they become like a starter and get that like more minutes too.
Mhm.
I don't think it has a huge shot. I might put it at like a 2 or a 3. Simons has more of an argument, but again, I don't know if he has the minutes to do it. If he did, I think he 100% like would be in the conversation. I'm gonna put him at like mm, be like a 7.
Yeah, I would say same thing as you kind of said. To me, Nas isn't gonna unless he all of a sudden just goes crazy. I don't think he really has a chance. To me, I think it's a 2. It probably is even a 1. I think, like you said, Simons definitely has more of a case to be considered for that. And if he continues playing the way he's playing, and hopefully gets a little bit more minutes so he can play a little bit more, I think he's definitely going to be in the conversation. I don't know how the the plays he's making, it, it's going to follow as long as it continues. So I would say 7, 8, and I think that's a he's got a pretty good chance at it. What about Nurkic for Defensive Player of the Year?
This one's complicated because I want to answer something really high. Sorry, I want to answer something really high, like an 8 or a 9. But I feel like just because he's Nurk and not as known as like a Giannis or a Gobert or even Anthony Davis in normal years, I feel like his name recognition isn't there unless he has like a strong narrative somehow. So I want to say something like an 8, but be realistic, I'll put him down to a 7. And so I just want to hop on that. His defensive stats are looking like amazing this year. So he's leading the league or like top 5 to 10 in so many stats. And like 538's like their metric, the Raptor score or whatever they call it. He's number 1 in the league on defense. So he, on paper he has an argument. I don't know if he has the name recognition, and voters often
Yeah.
go for those kind of guys.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even realize he was that high on the defensive stats like that. So for me, I would say it's probably like kind of the same issue you just said. It's his name recognition. It's also going to kind of play into our record. If we have a
Mm.
subpar season, no matter what his stats are, I don't think it's going to matter. So it kind of matters with our record and how if he continues to play the way he's playing and he's engaged and stays healthy. So for right now, I'm gonna just put it at a 6, but it could go either way. Larry Nance, sixth man of the year. How do you feel about that?
He was my preseason pick for sixth man of the year in the league. So I guess that back then I probably would have said like a 9. Now I don't know, probably like a 5 even.
Yeah.
But the one who I think does have a chance is Simons. I think if Hero has a stretch of bad games or if he somehow becomes a starter, I think there's a very, very good chance that Simons enters the conversation and becomes a front runner even if he continues this like improved play. So I'm gonna put him at a 8.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I didn't even think about Simons, and technically he is our sixth man, I think. So I would assume I would consider him our sixth man. So I too, I don't think we're using Nance as well as we should be. So I would say I think his six man of the year, I'd give it like a 4 or 3. But I mean
Mhm.
that could change. I just don't think we use him right. I do agree. I think Simons has a pretty good shot at if he continues to play the way he does. I think he would have a good shot at being at least in the conversation. So I'd give that a 7. Uh, this one's a fun one. Greg Brown, Rookie of the Year. I I'll just start off. I don't think it'll happen. I'd love to see it happen, but unfortunately, I think that's probably the one that's going to be most impossible. But I would love it if Greg Brown was Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, as much as I love him, I think that's a 1.
Yeah. I mean, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Greg Brown, maybe a most improved down the line, but not this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's number 1 in Rookie of the Year for us Portland fans, but I don't think it's going to happen. Last but not least, and probably one of the most important ones, the Blazers being NBA champions. What do you think the likelihood of that is?
I honestly don't even know how to answer this one. I feel
It's
like it's
hard.
still so early. I don't know what to make of the team. We're so up and down right now. Um, gun to my head, I think I would give us a 5. I think it's just too hard to make any solid predictions about our team right now.
I'm right there with you. It's too early. I think what I want to do though is I want to try to remember this and I want to check back maybe All-Star break and see where we're at and see
Yeah.
if we're in contention, see how we feel about it then. But I would say I might even be lower than 5 right now. I mean, it's too early to tell. So we're gonna kind of get into a little depressing. There's not much info, so I don't really know how much we can talk about it. But I'm gonna kind of let Fawad go off on this. The Neil Olshey news that we heard after the Lakers game. Go ahead, Fawad. If you have anything you want to talk about, go for it.
Yeah. I don't actually one sec. This is kind of a tough one because I still don't even have my thoughts like fully gathered, but um I think it's not secret or even really a surprise that okay, first of all, let's just go over what some
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of the allegations were. Let me pull up the Haynes article, but basically it was a lot of like workplace misconduct, like he created a toxic workplace, bullying people, yelling at them.
Well,
Um
while you're pulling it up, I'll just talk a little bit about it so you can get it pulled up. I don't see a way that Neil Olshey is the GM after this is over. Whether they find something or not, to me, it just something's not right for it to happen this out of the blue and randomly. Something's going on, and I just have a hard time. It might not be till the end of the year. It might be, in the next week. I don't know, but I just have a hard time seeing him be our GM after this. And I'm gonna be honest with you, he kind of gives off some strange vibes, and I'm not surprised by the reports at all because just for example, the Chauncey Billups interview once they hired him, he pretty much was like telling Chauncey Billups, "Don't talk. Just we already answered that. Don't say nothing." And it's like we're all humans. We can all talk for ourselves. It was weird. And I even remember watching it being like, "Why is he so like on top of it and like making sure nothing's said wrong. So I'm not surprised by the reports, but we just kind of like the Billups thing. We don't know until we know. So if when you're ready, go ahead and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, so this is the most recent update from Chris Haynes as of yesterday at 6:36. I guess this is my time Eastern. So basically, he is being investigated for allegedly creating a hostile work environment that includes complaints of intimidation, profanity-laced tirades, and bullying. So the team, or I guess the firm that the team hired, has interviewed several several like I don't know what it says exactly. So initially, what they did was they interviewed people at the practice facility, and now they're expanding it to former and current employees. So that's what the current status is, and it said it might the investigation might go on for a while. So yeah, like you said, I don't think anyone is that surprised. He definitely gives off those kind of vibes that he's an arrogant an arrogant douche kind of. So yeah, I wasn't surprised.
Oh, for sure, for sure. That's
So
nice. That's the nice way of
yeah,
putting
I
it.
was trying to bite my tongue. So, I'm not too surprised by that at all. Like you said, you can see that in his press conferences and even just the way he operates. He seems very sure of himself and in a bad way though. So and I agree that he's definitely gone, whether it's at the end of this investigation or at the end of this season. I think he's a dead man walking basically. Um, I don't know how I feel about that though, because he's obviously not very popular among the Blazers fan base. I have an unpopular opinion with this, and I think he actually is a pretty good GM, even though most people don't think so. So while I would be happy if he's hired for a better GM, I don't know how many better GMs are out there, and a good GM can define your franchise. And if we hire someone who's not that good, we might be screwed for like the next several years. So I'm just a little bit worried about that. I like playing it safe. I wouldn't have um, been opposed to Olshey staying around, but let's just hope we move in the positive direction.
Yeah, and we talked about it a while ago. I kind of agree. Olshey's not a bad GM. He does make good moves. I mean, he built the Clippers, and they were a good team for a while with Chris Paul and Griffin and Jordan and JJ Redick, and those were, or actually I don't know if JJ Redick was there when he was, but either way, he does build good teams. I think one of the biggest issues is he's not very aggressive once the season starts.
Yeah, he
And
plays it safe, and I like to play it safe too. So I don't. I'm not surprised that I don't
yeah.
see him as negatively as some other people.
Yeah, but there is Danny Ainge still out there, I believe, and I would I'd be all for having Danny Ainge be a GM for us. He seems to make some pretty good moves, but we'll talk about that if something comes up and Olshey ends up leaving. We'll definitely talk about that. That might be one of those podcasts where it's in the middle of the week and we do a podcast. Um, but we want to kind of speed it up, wrap it up a little bit. So we
One
got
last
the
thing that I
oh,
just
go
want to
for
touch
it.
about same topic. I don't really know anything, so I'm just like wondering out loud. Basically, the timing of it was really interesting. It was
Yeah,
just an hour after a big win against the Lakers. So and it was on a Friday night, which is obviously not at the end of the news cycle. No one will be able to talk about it
yeah,
on TV
exactly,
until like 3 days later. I found that interesting, and then also the timing paired with the Suns investigation with Robert Sarver. So
exactly.
I'm wondering if are they connected in any way, or are they being proactive because they know something could come out?
Yeah,
Um, or did someone just happen to say something about him at the
same
coincidentally
time.
at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about the Suns. That's a great point. So obviously that's going to be a topic we'll probably bring up again. So for the next podcast or whenever it does, whatever stuff comes out, we will talk about that. So we want to get to our new segment that we did. We did highlights from this week, and we had everyone kind of vote on what highlight they liked the best. So we had 4 of them. One of them Mike's a little salty about, but it's Nasir Little's block on Carmelo, which I thought was a very nice block, and it was a high energy play. Then there was uh, surprisingly double highlights here. Robert Covington's tomahawk slam versus the Pacers, which was a monster jam. That dunk was hard. And then we have Robert Covington's clutch threes versus the Pacers. And then Powell had a really nice baseline slam that he took to the baseline and dunked on the Pacers also. So those were the 4 highlights. We had a vote. We ended up getting 7 votes for Robert Covington's clutch 3-point shooting, and I actually would agree. I think that's the highlight of the week too for me. His slam was close second, but I think those threes that he made led it to a win, and I think that was the highlight for me. What about for you?
That's the one I voted for too. It was
Yeah.
a huge 3, and it just capped off a good game from him.
Yeah, I agree. So I enjoyed the highlights, and I look forward to doing it next week. Hopefully, we have a couple more that we can do. So make sure if you guys are in here and you're listening, come in, vote on the highlights, and we'll get your guys' opinions in here. One other thing I wanted to talk about. Just recently, we started getting our podcast posted on Apple Podcasts, and if you guys are listening right now and you are listening through Apple Podcast, if you feel like it, we would appreciate it so much. Leave reviews. Let us know, how you feel about it, what you think we can do better. We love hearing feedback, and that applies for anybody listening on Spotify or anywhere else. And you're in Discord or on Twitter, you can leave reviews and let us know, and give us suggestions. I just wanted to. I know now it's a newer thing, us being on Apple, and I know they can leave reviews on there. So if you feel inclined to leave some reviews for us. And one other thing I wanted to talk about, we're gonna have a round 2 of our listener podcast next Monday. So if you're listening and you haven't confirmed you want to be in it, just let us know either on Discord or on Twitter. Just let us know you want to be a part of it. Super easy, super laid back. We had a good time the first time. I really enjoyed it. And I know the people that did it enjoyed it. So we're just going to have another listener podcast, talk about basketball, talk about Blazers, and, have a good time again. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up, but we want to do our second iteration of our segment here where we're going to predict the games for next week. And with that being said, we have actually a bunch of games for this next week. We got the Suns on Wednesday. We got Houston, or sorry, let me back up. We have the Clippers tomorrow. We have the Suns on Wednesday, the Rockets on Friday, Denver on Sunday, and Toronto on Monday, which is when we'll be filming the next one. So, Fawad, how do you feel about those 5 games?
So our road record is not good. I think we're 0-4. I'm gonna be a little cautious with my predictions. I think I'm gonna go with a win against the Clippers, a loss against the Suns, win against the Rockets, the Nuggets. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with the loss against the Nuggets because it's on the road and in Denver, and we normally don't play well in Denver with the elevation. So, win against the Clippers, loss against the Suns, win against the Rockets, loss against the Nuggets, and then I think we're gonna beat Toronto, even though they're a really good team and it's on the second night of the back-to-back. But we're back home, and hopefully by then Dame is back. So I will take us going 3-2.
We're gonna be pretty close in this one. I'm gonna give a little change here. I'm gonna say we're gonna win in LA. We're gonna beat the Clippers. We're gonna lose to Phoenix. We're gonna beat Houston, and I think the surprise game we're gonna beat Denver in Denver. And then Toronto is gonna be a close game, but at home, and it's a back to back. It's a little scary, but I kind of like being back at home after that long trip, and I think Lillard's gonna have a great night on that night too. So I'm gonna have us winning against Toronto. So I'm gonna have us going 4-1, and I'm hoping that's gonna start our season off, and we're gonna just go from there, and we're not gonna look back. So 4-1 for me, and you got 3-2, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll check back next week. I'm sure I'll probably be behind even more now, but hey, you know what? I just want to thank everybody for listening. Fawad, thanks for joining and doing this podcast with us. Like I said, if you're listening on Apple, leave a review if you feel like it, or join our Twitter or Discord and come in and talk with us and give us reviews and what we can work on and what you like.
We're open to constructive criticism as well, so it doesn't have to be all
Totally.
positive.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be positive at all. If you don't like something, let us know. We want to know. So I appreciate you guys. We look forward to tomorrow night's game. And as always, Rip City, baby. Son of a gun, I was in the wrong chat, so I don't even have that stupid bot thing. Okay, here we go.